with the school year quickly winding down to an end, we thought we'd take the next couple of weeks and talk to some of our coaches and look ahead to the upcoming season in the 2002-2003 school year. And on this week's show, we're going to talk men's and women's soccer and men's and women's tennis. Our show is called Mastodon Spotlight, and it's coming up next. Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Maas. Welcome to Mastodon Spotlight. Well, as I said a moment ago, this school year is fast coming to a close. There's only about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks tops of classes and then final exams. And so that means also that the athletic programs are winding down, the spring programs. And what we'd like to do for the next 3 weeks is to take a look at the upcoming school year. And we've invited some of the head coaches of some of the sports to come on and talk about the upcoming schedule and talk about some of the recruits they've been able to sign. And our first guest this week is the head coach for both men's and women's soccer here at IPFW. We welcome back to the program Terry Stefankowitz.
Hi Mike, how are you?
Not as busy. I've been busy, but not as busy as you and Mike Harper have been, I'm sure.
We've been very, very busy.
This is I guess the high note of the recruiting season for you and Mike. The chance where you're getting to sign new players, new student athletes to come on board and come to the university. We're going to spend our first segment on the women's program and the next segment on the men's, but let's talk briefly about what you and Mike have had to do with the women's program in terms of recruiting.
Well, we're still fighting a numbers game. We need more players. The quality of the players that we've signed this coming year are outstanding. We're taking great pride in the fact that there is a new scholarship available at IPFW. It's called the Chancellor's Merit Scholarship. This is an opportunity for out-of-state student athletes to pay in-state tuition. They have to have 1100 SAT, and they have to be in the top 20% of their graduating class. And we're really proud to say that we've got 9 of those signed, and potentially 2 more. So we're really, really excited about not only bringing in good athletes, but bringing in good student athletes. In terms of the women's program, we've signed 6 players. For the first time, we signed the Player of the Year in the state of Indiana, Kelly DeArmond from Homestead High School. And Kelly is playing club soccer right now, and I've been watching her, and she's on a team that's probably not doing quite as well as she would like, but Kelly's a tremendous athlete. She's a great leader. She can play goalkeeper or she can play on the field. She's one of the girls that we know will come in and make a huge impact to our program. The other local girl that we've signed is Shannon Renierson from Northrop High School. She's a second-team All-State player. Shannon will play either in the midfield or in the back. She's tall and she's really good in the air, so she gives us that added dimension of winning some head balls. She is also playing on Kelly's team, so I've been able to watch them play throughout the summer, or through the spring at least, and we're really excited about having 2 excellent local players stay in town and come to IPFW. In addition to those 2, also in the state of Indiana, we have Sarah DeZarmo from Chesterton High School. And Sarah is in the mold of Jacqueline Pantello, who is a freshman, will be a sophomore next year. Sarah is a great 50-50 ball winner. She's a really tough, typical Northwest Indiana type girl, just a hard-nosed tackler, and I think she will come in and do a great job for us as well. She plays in the back, and who knows, she might be fighting Jacqueline for the same position, because they're two of the same type players. And then leaving the state of Indiana, we're real excited. We've signed 2 first-team All-Staters, the Massachusetts connection again. We have a first-team All-State goalkeeper. Her name is Rachel Poore. She's one of the Merit Scholarship winners. And Rachel is a big, strong type goalkeeper. She punts the ball 75 yards. We've had a little bit of difficulty in terms of distribution, and she can punt the ball from one penalty area to the other in the air, so big and strong. If she has a weakness, it may be a little bit of her foot skills, the quickness, because she is so big, but she's just a really tenacious type player. She's got that hard-nosed look on her face, and she may scare some of the forwards. The other first-team All-State player is Lindsay Williamson, who we're really, really excited about. Lindsay made visits to North Carolina, Kansas, Boston University, Boston College, and this was her last visit. And we were really low on the totem pole, but we were so excited about the fact that she could come in and score goals for us. We flew her out, and she fell in love with IPFW. As a matter of fact, the local newspaper did a big article on both the Massachusetts girls, had their pictures in the paper, and Lindsay was quoted as saying, and I had no idea that, I didn't even know where IPFW was. I pictured cornfields all over, and she left here, and she really liked the fact that we had Canterbury Green, and we have what she wants to major in. Lindsay is the second all-time leading scorer for her high school in the history of the high school, which has a rich tradition. It's kind of like a Canterbury of Massachusetts. So we're extremely excited about Lindsay coming here. And our last signee is Jessica Roeder. She's from Illinois. She's from Peoria, Illinois. And Jessica is a central midfielder. She's on the ODP team for the state of Illinois. One of the tougher girls, another Chancellor Scholar, very intelligent girl, and when Peter Hi saw her, he was happy because she's an attractive young lady as well. But I think this is by far and away our best total recruiting class. We're still looking at a couple more. We'd like to bring in 2 or 3 more before we're finished.
Briefly, before we run out of time in this segment, you brought 2 gals in from Massachusetts. How important was it the fact that you already had 2 gals in Kristen McDonald and Chasina Hersey? How much did that influence these other 2 gals to come west?
Well, as a matter of fact, Kristen and Rachel Poore from the same high school, 2 years apart, and Lindsay Williamson was a cross-town rival, so they all know each other. Chasina really didn't know these girls, but Kristen played an important factor in locating them, and then when they came, obviously they had that connection of being local girls. And one of the things I think the parents like is that at Christmas time they have transportation back and forth, and so that's a good thing. We want to keep that thing going. It's been paying dividends for us.
I'm going to save a question about recruiting to the next segment. We'll tie it in with both men and women, but briefly, let's look at this schedule, upcoming schedule for next fall. We start on August 21st with Indiana Tech. Then we've got the soccer showcase, and we're going to talk about that in a later segment in detail. But some of these opponents, IUPUI, DePaul, Valpo, Niagara, Indiana State, Loyola Chicago, Toledo, Murray State, Wright State, Michigan State, you go there, they came here this year, Butler, Detroit Mercy, Western Illinois, Northern Iowa, Ball State, and then you finish the season the first weekend of November going down to South Carolina to take on Coastal Carolina and the College of Charleston. An interesting schedule, and as we said before we started taping, not that much traveling. I think that's going to help, something that you and Mike have talked about during the course of the season this past fall. The travel part is going to be a lot easier this year.
We learned a very valuable lesson. Unfortunately, it was a bad one in terms of the amount of travel that we took with the women's team last year. And there was a high correlation from weekend to weekend from the first game when the kids weren't tired and then traveled another great distance for the second game and back. It took a great toll on the girls. So Mike has done the scheduling, and we did talk about this prior to the scheduling of this up-and-coming season. He's done a great job in minimizing the distance and the time away from our classes, and yet it's a tremendous schedule. We've already got some great rivalries. You know, this is only our second year of Division I, but IUPUI and IPFW never liked each other to begin with. But we really opened with them this year. And then Valparaiso, who has a really good soccer program, just can't beat us. They can't beat us in the indoor. We beat them again this year in the indoor. We beat them outdoors, and then we beat them in the indoor last year. So they're 0-3 against us, and they're really gunning for us. We've gone into some recruiting wars with Valparaiso, and it's created some good competition. So we're excited about the whole schedule. We naturally take them one at a time, and we've got a long way to go, but it'll be here really quick.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the men's program. Also want to talk briefly about some of the trials and travails of recruiting that we talked about in our last show with Mike Harper. We'll talk more about that with Terry Stefankowitz, and that will take place when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
As time flows on, there are places we return to again and again. Places that comfort us with their serenity. Places that astound us with their beauty. Places where our memories come to life. Precious places, timeless places, places that with your help can endure forever. I'm Paul Newman. Help the Nature Conservancy save the last great places around the world.
I was a liberal arts major in college.
I didn't speak a second language.
What could I?
What could I offer the Peace Corps?
The answer surprised me. I served in South Africa teaching HIV/AIDS awareness.
Working with my students in Nicaragua was a great experience. We taught each other a lot about our countries and cultures.
This is the Peace Corps today.
Redefine your world. Join the Peace Corps.
Apply now at peacecorps.gov.
All over America, people are taking the National Radon Test. Have you?
You put me on the spot!
True or false? Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer.
True. I'd say false.
No, it's true.
That's something new to me.
The Office of the Surgeon General recommends all homes be tested for radon.
False.
It's true.
True.
So that's bad. We should get our house tested.
Yeah, I'm going to call it.
1-800-SOS-RADON.
How can you not call?
1-800-SOS-RADON.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Our topic for this segment of the program is soccer, both men's and women's. Our guest is the head coach for men's and women's soccer here at IPFW, Terry Stefankowitz. And Terry, before we get into talking about the men's program, something that you wanted to discuss briefly, soccer is a fall sport for both men and women. We're talking here late April in the springtime. What have you been doing with your teams in terms of conditioning and other areas in the off-season part to get ready for the upcoming season this fall?
Yeah, Mike, I think this is one of the things that Mike and I are most satisfied with. It's the dedication of the returnees. We put them in a rigorous weight training, plyometrics, and then we did some outdoor ball work. The NCAA Division I rules are really strange. We really can't do much with the ball until our short window of opportunity for our secondary season. But every single guy and girl that are returning have either put on some weight in terms of muscle mass and quickness. We've worked with their quickness and the plyometrics. And what is best about the entire group is the discipline. There's no clowning around. We work hard for 1 hour. They're in there on time every day, and they want to work. They feel the difference. They see the difference. The men we'll talk about played in a 20-team 7 versus 7 tournament recently at Huntington College and were champions. They're real proud of that. The women played as well, and they won both their games. So they're seeing where all this hard work is paying off. So it's been a big help.
Well, let's talk about the men's program right now, and you had a number of seniors that graduated and a couple of other changes in the roster, so you had to do looking for a lot of people on the men's side. Let's talk about some of your recruits for the men.
Well, we were so excited about the women. The women we started signing some women early, and then all of a sudden the men took off. We've signed 10 players for next year on the men's side, and we're not done. We'll talk about that in a second. Again, with the men, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new players on this Chancellor's Merit Scholarship, which is an excellent thing. I'll run down the list, tell you what position and what state they're from. Joe Schuring is a forward from Michigan. He's a left-footed player, extremely fast, recruited by the University of Michigan, and we stole him away. Trent Miller is a central midfielder, also from Michigan. He's one of those guys where you look at him and you think, I don't think he can play Division I, but he's a real wiry, extremely fast, just a workaholic type of guy, and he's from Michigan. Trevor Peasley is also from Michigan, and he's 6'5", and he can sky, so he's very dangerous on restarts, and he's going to be a project, I think, for a year because he's not had the type of high school coaching, but I see where he could pay big dividends down in the future. Tony Johnson, Chancellor's Merit from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He's a goalkeeper. He's a state goalkeeper for the state of Wisconsin, so we're real excited about him. Craig Vandefusey is a young man who played forward with his high school team, plays outside midfield with his club team, and participated against Indiana University in a scrimmage in Kalamazoo, Michigan the other night, and was one of the outstanding players on both teams as an incoming freshman. We're really excited about him. He can fly. He's really, really extremely fast. Derek Hibbert is a forward, also from Michigan. He was asked to join the Indiana University team. They did not offer him a scholarship, but they really wanted him. They pursued him, and we're real lucky to have him. He's a big, strong guy. He's about 6'2", excellent shot with both right and left, turns well both ways. A very mature young man for an incoming freshman. Brandon Mead, we saw him in Florida. He's a sweeper. He's about 6'2", left-footed, doesn't make mistakes, very cool, calm, collected with the ball. So we're expecting big things from Brandon. And then Seth Gibson and Brad Stout are our 2 local players. Seth played on the Citadel team that won the state championship last year, and Seth's from Homestead High School, and we expect him to come in and help us in the midfield. Brad Stout is transferring from Purdue. He was a Carroll High School graduate, played on my son's travel team with Citadel, and he's a big, strong, extremely fast guy for as big as he is, and he gives us some tenacity, if you will. We also have a verbal commitment from a man from Chicago, but I can't tell you who that is, and maybe part of our Chicago connection. And then we're real excited about a potential couple junior college kids that we're talking to, and if we land those, it'll be a tremendous recruiting year.
You mentioned that there's a couple of signees you've gotten who your mentor Jerry Yeagley wanted down in Bloomington.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we are a D1 school, in essence competing directly with Jerry Yeagley and other D1 schools, How has that affected the recruiting that you're going up against, not only IU, but Notre Dame and other schools as well?
To be honest, Mike, we're not going after the kids that he's offering scholarships to. What Jerry does is he takes a group of kids that he offers full rides to that he knows will be impact players, and then he keeps his eye on a few kids that usually throughout the course of 4 years will come in and really help the team as a walk-on and then later on earn a scholarship. Those are the kinds of kids that we're trying to persuade to come to IPFW. And I think that those kinds of kids will come in and make a big impact for our program.
We look ahead to this coming year's men's schedule. Again, we're going to start with the showcase, and we'll talk about that in detail in just a few moments in the next segment. But then you've got University of Louisville, Alabama A&M. The men's team is going to make their trip to South Carolina in September, as opposed to the women's in November, where you'll take on Coastal Carolina and Charleston Southern. Then you're going to go to Cleveland State, University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. I'm assuming University of Wisconsin?
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to play Green Bay, and we're going to play Milwaukee, Wisconsin, instead of the University of Wisconsin.
Eastern Illinois, Detroit Mercy, Loyola Chicago, Western Illinois, IUPUI, Western Michigan, DePaul, Butler, Akron, Northwestern, Taylor University up in Upland, and finish it off by going down to Bowling Green. Again, and you briefly referenced it in the last segment, the travel. You and Mike learned your lesson last year in the sense that you're not having to travel cross-country on literally a day's notice and what have you, not having to travel as far. Quick thought on the schedule.
I don't think it hurts the men as much as it hurt the women, but it did play an important factor, especially when it was really extremely hot early in the season. That one trip that we took out to Missouri, it just killed us. It was about a 9-hour drive there, and then we played, and then we drove another 4 more hours to play the next day, and it was 90 degrees in the shade, and it paid a toll, took a toll on us. But again, Mike has done a great job. Coastal Carolina we're going to fly to so that we don't have to worry about busing, and I think the guys have sat down and really analyzed it. They're really excited about the schedule. It's tough, but they like the challenge.
Well, we're going to take another break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to you, and that is the upcoming soccer showcase. It'll be soccer showcase number 3 for men, number 2 for women. And we're going to talk in more detail about Soccer Showcase when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
I wasn't going to school because I was making money stealing cars. Well, I was 10 when I first got involved with drugs. I skipped school because, nobody cared.
When I first got pregnant, school was not important to me, so I dropped out.
Well, if I don't finish school, then I can't go to college. That's the whole point of what I want to do with my life.
I still need to go to school to make it for myself.
I think I'm happier now. I know I'm happier now.
Hello, my name is Estelle Ward, and I'd like to speak to someone about my daughter Ruth's financial aid. Hello, yes, I'm Ruth Ward's mom, and I was hoping the university might reconsider. She got good grades. Hello, I'm Ruth Ward's mother, and I'd like to speak to someone about my daughter's financial aid.
Young, who got some good minutes in the first half, hits the jumper. Tiffany Young, a junior from Hillsboro, Alabama, has 4. Young, 17, has got it. And Tiffany Young with a sensational performance.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We're visiting with the head coach for both men's and women's soccer here at IPFW, Terry Stefankowitz. And Terry, before we talk about the soccer showcase, let's talk briefly. You talked about the recruits coming in for the men's team, but there are a number of returning players, and the first player that comes to my mind, hard to believe he's going to be a senior, Ian Lulia, who we've had on this show twice. And I think I actually got it down where I can pronounce his last name now.
Finally, huh?
It's taken me 3 years to do it. But briefly talk about some of the returning players for the men this year.
Well, we have 12 returning players. As I alluded to earlier, well, the work ethic that these 12 young men have developed and maintained throughout, from the end of the season till now, has been tremendous. And we played in an indoor tournament that had about 12 teams, and we got second place. And then we went to that 7 versus 7 tournament outside. There were 20 teams. IPFW won that. And then we finished our outdoor season up against St. Francis and won 3-0. And we had no subs. We only had 11 kids out there. And you know, that showed me that we've turned the corner. Ian has been noticed and recognized for his soccer ability, and he will be playing with the Kalamazoo Kingdom this summer. It's a semi-pro team, and he's really excited about that, and he's looking forward to training with some of the Michigan recruits this summer, because they will be training with that Kingdom team too. That's the kind of caliber of kids that we're bringing in this year. So I think it'll be a real good learning experience for Ian to get to know those kids, and those kids to get to know Ian. The two other captains, Scotty Bailey is finally a senior, and we've moved Scotty all over the field, and finally this spring we moved him in the back, and he's a tenacious, tough defender. He's one of the fastest guys on the team, and I think he found a home finally in the back. And John Skonecki was on a medical red shirt last year. He's from Massachusetts, and John's about 6'4". We're real excited about getting him back next year. And then some of the surprises. Craig Keys, a local guy from Bishop Dwenger, had a real good spring, and Billy Foreman scored a couple real important goals for us in the 7 versus 7, and he's from Decatur, Indiana, and really never played much soccer, and he's worked himself into a position where I think he can help us. There are several of the guys. Naturally, Peter Hi-Hi, who is our goalkeeper from Poland and Chicago. He's a tremendous athlete, and I look for great things from Peter. Bart has improved his quickness at sweeper. So several of the guys have stepped up, and it's been a real good spring. And I know you want to talk about the showcase.
Let's get into it. We got about 9 minutes, I think John says, and got a lot of ground to cover. But soccer showcase number 3 for men, number 2 for women. Let's pull up on the screen. You're going to see the graphic for the logo for the upcoming showcase. Briefly talk about how that came about.
Well, we've had several meetings about the soccer showcase logo, and really no one liked the pink. So Ron Clark took it upon himself to come up with this, and now everybody's really liking this. It's multicolored, it's exciting, it looks like a soccer logo, and I think we're going to go with that.
This tournament, and it is an exhibition,
Mm-hmm.
but it's already, and it has been now called one of the premier soccer events in the country. Of course, I think you have worked extremely hard with this, and no doubt one of the people that you're most indebted to is Jerry Yeagley down in Bloomington at IU.
Without a doubt.
But it's the preseason NIT of soccer. And the dates this year are going to be Friday, August 23rd, Saturday, August 24th, Sunday, August 25th. But it's not just collegiate soccer. And I'll let you take and run with it for a few minutes now, because we're talking men's and women's soccer on the college level, we're talking the high school level, and even on the junior level. And go ahead and talk about what we're going to see come August.
Okay, I'll just go over the schedule. Let's talk about Friday. I always get off on these tangents when I get on. This tournament has gotten so big that I have people calling me for next year. I don't have to worry about next year. It's taken care of already. And that's, in the beginning I was begging people to come to IPFW. Now everybody's heard about it, and St. Louis wants to come back, Rutgers wants to come back, South Carolina wants to come back. It's just wonderful. All right, Friday, August 23rd, 6:30. We're going to play on 2 fields now, simultaneously. So it's going to be men's and women's soccer. You choose. You can walk from side to side and see both. Indiana's men will play Kentucky's men. And on field 2, Purdue's women will play Kentucky's women. So that opens it up. And then at 8:30, Virginia's men will play Michigan State. And then I feel the premier game of the tournament will be Notre Dame's women and North Carolina's women. North Carolina has won 16 out of the last 20 NCAA national champions. And Notre Dame is ranked in the top 5 year in and year out. So you've got the number 1, number 2, or number 3 or 4 or 5 teams in the country, both men and women, coming here to IPFW.
And correct me if I'm wrong, North Carolina was the national runner-up this past season, and Notre Dame, were they the champions or were they the runners-up previous season?
Previous season runner-up. They played North Carolina for the championship and lost, but Santa Clara are the national champs right now. And then Saturday. Now, the schedule starts at 7 a.m. because we've incorporated a youth tournament. The Citadel is hosting a hopefully 100-team youth tournament in conjunction with the IPFW Soccer Showcase. So that will kick off at 7 a.m. And then Northrop, the boys have 4 teams that will be playing, and they'll be playing on fields 3 and 4. And Northrop is bringing in a team from Michigan, a team from Indianapolis, and a team from Elkhart to play a 4-team round robin. And then at 3 o'clock, IPFW's men's team will play Oakland University. And at the same time, we're going to have a picnic. We're going to be playing on field 1. And on field 2, there'll be a picnic for all the youth kids and all the college players to come in and watch IPFW play Oakland and have a box lunch and get autographs for the kids. And then comes the grand ceremony. After the men's teams play, we're going to march in all these hundreds of teams onto the field in their uniforms, and then we're going to have the college teams march in, and hopefully we're going to have a big flag in the middle of the field and play the national anthem and introduce the clubs that these teams represent as they march onto the field. And we feel like we could have anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 people at the women's game, which we will play Indiana University. So we're really, really excited. And then after that game is the traditional big high school game. Homestead will play Canterbury. And that will conclude Saturday's events, which will be so busy. And then finally Sunday, they'll finish up the Citadel Jamboree. And then Notre Dame's women will play Kentucky's women. And Indiana men will play Virginia's men. And Michigan State's men will play Kentucky's men.
Just a ho-hum weekend in August.
Yeah.
It's a tremendous undertaking, and you have to be credited to getting this thing going, but you've got not only the university, as you say, you've got youth teams, you've got high school involved, and the community. But I know that you're always looking for help. Who can, if somebody's watching this program and has an interest in soccer and would like to help in some way, shape, or form, who can they contact?
Just call Ron Clark at the athletic office, 481-6643. That's Kelly, and she can patch you through to Ron Clark's office. We're always looking for volunteers and sponsorship. It's a very expensive task to bring these universities in here. The city of Fort Wayne has really supported this in the past, and we know they'll continue to do so. It's taken off so much that Adidas is helping more this year. We're including Snickers and Tide, and I think that the young kids are going to have an extraordinarily good time in terms of having blow-up things to jump on and kick for distance and power, and the kids will be able to test themselves as well as watch great soccer.
When you thought up of this idea some years back, and you've seen how it's grown. And last year we incorporated the women. We had 4 teams involved. And now this year there's even more women's teams involved. In your brightest dreams, did you expect this tournament to take off as quickly as it has and grown as big as it has?
It may sound cocky, but yes, I did. We're not finished. We want to get this thing nationally televised. And I envision someday, and I told Mark Pope, I have this pie-in-the-sky attitude all the time. But before we're done, I want to see this on national TV, and I think it can be done. Before we leave, and I know we're running out of time, I want to wish DeMarcus Beasley all the luck in the world. He made the World Cup soccer team. He's from Fort Wayne, Indiana. He played with my son for years, and he's just a great, great asset to Fort Wayne, and wish him all the luck.
Believe it or not, John says we've got a couple of minutes left.
Okay.
So in these last couple of minutes, we talk about the showcase. How much of an impact do you feel it has had, can have, and will have in the recruiting efforts for you and your programs, both men and women here at IPFW in the future?
It's had a tremendous impact already. You know, I've been around a long time, and what a great asset to be able to say we played against. We've had Duke, St. Louis, Rutgers, Indiana, Notre Dame, now North Carolina. It just goes on in the 3 years that this tournament has taken place, and it will continue to grow. Our kids really look forward to playing in it. We still have the challenge to our kids. They want to be on the team that wins the first game in the showcase. We finally scored a goal last year, but we want to win one. And it's just a great tool for us to use. And the other thing is that the city of Fort Wayne is supporting it so much, and the Citadel soccer program is supporting it, that the attendance has been such that we'd like to get some scholarships out of this for the men's and women's soccer programs. So the goal is to, you know, every program is asked to help itself, and the showcase is our #1 tool to do that.
Well, once again, the dates for Soccer Showcase number 3, 3 for the men, 2 for the women, Friday, August 23rd, Saturday, August 24th, Sunday, August 25th. The event will take place at the Hefner Fields Complex, and we're looking forward to tremendous crowds and tremendous camaraderie and tremendous soccer. And we're going to let you go now, but tentatively when we come back, because we've only got a few more shows to run before the end of the school year here at Mastodon Spotlight, we tentatively hope to come back and start season number 4 of Mastodon Spotlight by previewing the showcase in more detail come August. But again, congratulations on all the hard work that you and Mike have done with the program. And enjoy the rest of the summer as best you can. I know you got the workouts, and you've got still some work to do from the recruiting angle. But continued success, and we look forward to visiting you in early August.
Thank you very much. And the last thing, I always get the last word. Mark Pope, our athletic director, promised me this year that there will be no rain for the soccer showcase. For 2 years now, we've had rain.
Let's keep it on videotape.
There you go.
Terry Stefankowitz has been our guest, the head coach for men's and women's soccer here at IPFW. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to visit with assistant tennis coach Eric Burns and talk about the tennis programs here at IPFW. But that's when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
Dr. Matthew Kubik is an architectural engineering professor at IPFW who utilizes his experience to teach his students one-on-one.
So it's really shoulder-to-shoulder learning that we're looking at problems together for the first time.
Dr. Kubik also is the director of the honors program at IPFW. His ability to teach on a personal level allows him to educate to the needs of his honors students.
They want more conversation. They want a closer contact with professors. They want interactive learning in the classroom.
He is thankful for the advantages of a combined classroom of young students and students who are returning to college after years in the workplace.
That mix of students creates a classroom environment that is exciting, that's vibrant.
IPFW, the right school, right here, right now.
Today's teenagers, the way people talk, you'd think they can't do anything right. It's just not so. We get to know over 300,000 kids a year, smart kids who know what they want. They believe in themselves, and they believe in America. Some go straight to college. Others choose to learn leadership, discipline, courage, and commitment first with us. Today's military, making a stronger America, one good kid at a time.
A new century is coming, and with it, 1,000 questions. Will your family ever be in harm's way? Will a small town in Texas be hit with a hurricane? Will your daughter ever need a new kind of blood treatment? We have no crystal ball for the world that awaits. Just one promise. We'll be there.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We're going to turn our attention now away from the soccer field and move it to the tennis courts. And our guest for this segment is the assistant coach for both men's and women's tennis here at IPFW. We welcome back Eric Burns. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks.
Your season now for both men and women are complete.
Yes.
And when we visited last time, you talked about how interesting it has been. The fact this year both men's and women's tennis was played at the same time, unlike years in the past when one was in the spring, one was in the fall. So now that the season is over, I know you and Roxanne Cron are hard at work trying to bring more student athletes to the university to play tennis and go to school. I guess first and foremost, before we talk about some of the signings that you've been able to accomplish, what do you tell your returning players as to what they're going to do during the off season and what basically are their plans for the summer?
Well, we really encourage them to get out and play a lot of tournaments, USTA sanctioned tournaments in the summer, and just really work on their games and try to make improvements and come in ready to play in August when we start school. And I think playing competition is the only way to improve, and they can get that through USTA tournaments in the summer.
Are any of the players going to be staying here during the summer for the most part?
Well, I'm sure the local players on the men's side will be here. The others will be, going home. But I'm sure they will get out and play a lot of tournaments during the summer and really work on their games.
Well, let's get into it. Let's talk about some of the people you've been able to sign, both women and men. I guess we'll start with women, trying to be gender kind.
Okay.
Talk about who you've been able to sign for the upcoming season.
Okay, well, on the women's side, we have one signee so far. We signed her in the spring, and her name is Beth Miller. She's from Delta High School in Muncie, Indiana. Delta is a top 10 program year in, year out in tennis, and so we're really fortunate to have a player of Beth's caliber. She is a two-time all-conference selection in the Hoosier Heritage Conference, has a career record of 45-5 in 3 years, and she'll be coming in and majoring in telecommunications. On a Chancellor Scholarship. She's a solid singles and doubles player, has good fundamentals, and just a good all-around game. So we're really fortunate to have her. On the men's side, I'll just start in with them.
Okay.
Justin Clark, he signed in the fall. He's coming from Winchester. He's an honorable mention All-State doubles player. Had a senior season record of 19-2 and was a regional qualifier. And he's just a really big player. He has a big serve, good volleys, and so we can work with his game in doubles a lot. And I also forgot to mention that he's an alternate for the Indiana All-Star team this year. So we're fortunate to have him as well. We kind of hit the whole Muncie area. Billy Ruxton is another recruit we had. He's from Delta. Like I said, they're a top 10 program. He's a two-time All-State selection, including this year he was a second-team All-State member. Their team made it to semi-state this year before losing in the finals. He has been selected for the Indiana All-Star team, and he's playing on majoring in business, solid baseliner, good ground strokes, and a really quick player. And he also signed in the spring. Daniel Jackson, also from Delta. He's a three-time All-State selection in doubles, first-team All-State for 3 years. And this year he was runner-up in the state in doubles, he and his partner. So we're getting some pretty good players here. He has a really good serve and volley, and we'll be able to use that in doubles and as well as in singles. His singles game we'll have to work with a little bit, but you know, he's going to be a good player for us. And he's coming in and majoring in biology. And then our final signee is a kid from Lenexa, Kansas. It's Mac Chase. His real name is Michael, but he goes by Mac. It's from St. Thomas Aquinas High School. He is first team All-Sun Country in 2000 and was honorable mention in 1999 and a state qualifier in doubles. And he's been ranked as high as 20 in the Missouri Valley section for the USTA. And he has, you know, solid ground strokes and a big serve. And so he'll really come in and help as well. And he's majoring in business. So, I mean, the future looks really good here, and we're still working with some junior college kids to try to get them in on both sides. And if that can get done, we're going to be pretty good next year.
What's been the toughest part of recruiting for both you and Roxanne?
It's just, you know, there's not a lot of tradition at IPFW, and I think it's just selling the program, selling the school. You know, you fight the tradition problem, but you know, we've got something fresh here, something new. You know, we're going Division I, and that's exciting. And you know, if you can just get the kids excited about it, you know, you can overcome that tradition problem. So I think we've done that here.
It sounds like that the bulk of the signees coming in are more of a double specialist than a singles. Is that by design, bringing them in for doubles? I mean, obviously, I think you want to work with them both singles and doubles, but was the emphasis for going out looking for, you're looking for the quote-unquote best athlete, or you were looking for someone who was exceptional, maybe more so in either doubles or singles?
To be honest, we're just looking for good players. To me, if they're a good doubles player and they know how to win, that's important. It's more important that they know how to win. You know, if we can bring in a good doubles player, that's great, because the doubles point is really important in the 7-point matches. And so, you know, we need players that can come in and do both. So, you know, if you've got a good doubles player, it's a lot easier to learn to be a good singles player, I think. Singles players that are baseliners and not traditional serve and volleyers have trouble adapting to doubles more so than a doubles player, you know, adapting to more of a baseline game, more of a singles style. So it's a really good thing to bring in solid doubles players.
For the signees that you've mentioned, they're all going to be coming in as incoming freshmen. What are you and Roxanne able to do between now and the time they arrive on campus with them?
Well, we really won't be able to practice with them or do anything like that, you know, based on the NCAA rules. They just know that we would like them to, you know, get out this summer and work on their games, play tournaments, as I was talking about, for the returners, and I'm sure all these kids will. You know, they're really devoted players. They're gonna work hard year in and year out, and so you know, I think they're all gonna be assets for us.
This may sound like a silly question, but from a relative novice into the finer points of tennis, you talk about having them play tournaments and as many tournaments as possible. Do you have them get on the weights at all?
We haven't in the past. I think that's something we'll probably just wait to do when they get here. We'll use the fall as more of a, you know, it's the invitational season, and so there's really no team results in the fall. We can use that as part of an introduction to Division I tennis for these incoming players, but at the same time, you know, we can make great strides in the weight training and fitness area. So I think we'll use the fall for that, and then hopefully be ready to go in the spring when it comes to dual matches.
Let's briefly, if we can, turn our thoughts ahead to the infamous word scheduling. Have you and Roxanne been able to come up with a either fall and or partial spring schedule yet, or
yeah,
is there anything you can announce?
A little tougher on the men's side. It just seems like there's not as many Division I schools around here that are looking to play, but there are more women's teams. The MAC has problems with men's teams. They're down to 5 right now, but they have a full block of teams on the women's side, and so there just seem to be more teams, you know, ready to schedule on the women's side. So we have this women's schedule pretty well finished, The men's side's still being worked on at this moment, but the fall looks pretty good at this point. Both teams will play at Ball State's Invitational. The men will go to, well, actually both teams will go to University of Louisville's Invitational, and then both teams will go to Eastern Illinois, their Invitational as well. And then there might be a couple of dual matches here and there in between, but for the most part we play Invitationals.
In the fall season, and I think maybe the last time you were on we briefly touched on it, granted it's more of a training ground as you said, are team scores kept, or is it more of a, you say invitational, on the individual side, you get people in singles draw, people in doubles draw. Are points kept, team points kept?
No, it's mostly just it's on an individual basis. You know, you've just got players, you know, looking to win, you know, trophies at the tournaments for themselves. I mean, it's great for the team as well, but it's more of an individual side.
Last question, because we're just about out of time. Is there going to be any free time for you and Roxanne during the course between now and the time the new school year starts?
Oh, probably a little bit, but you know, we're busy teaching tennis as well, and you know, I'll be scheduling a lot. Still working with some of these men's teams, trying to get the schedules finalized and the contracts sent out and all that. So no, it doesn't look like there will be a lot of time for much. We might get out on the golf course a couple times, but. Other than that, you know, it'll be a busy summer.
Well, we appreciate you coming on to tell us about some of the signees and what we hope will be a successful fall and spring season next year for the IPFW tennis teams. Enjoy your summer. Say hi to Roxanne and tell her we said hi to Peyton as well.
I'll do that.
And we will see you come fall.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on.
Eric Burns has been our guest, the assistant tennis coach for both men's and women's tennis. We thank Eric, as we thank Terry Stefankowitz, who was on earlier in the program, and as always we thank you, the viewers, for tuning in to see what's going on with IPFW athletics. We invite you to come back next week. Tentatively our guests are scheduled to be Kelly Hartley for women's volleyball and Keith Fisher for women's softball rather. But that's next week, and until next week, this is Mike Maas saying have a great week and go Dons. With the academic year quickly coming to a close, we want to take a closer look at a couple of sports yet here on Mastodon Spotlight. This week we're going to talk women's softball and we're going to talk men's basketball. Again, our program is called Mastodon Spotlight and it's coming up next. Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Miles. Welcome once again to Mastodon Spotlight. I said a moment ago, the academic year is quickly coming to a close. This is the final week of regular classes, next week's final exams, and that also means that the athletic year is quickly coming to a close. On the first half of the program this week, we're going to be discussing women's softball. And we welcome back to the program, to my immediate right, Keith Fisher, head softball coach, and to Keith's right, able-bodied Tonto, otherwise known as Dennis Smith, pitching coach for IPFW softball. Gentlemen, welcome back. It's unfortunate because of scheduling conflicts. This is only the second time we're able to talk about softball, but I sure am glad you were able to make it today. And I know it's a busy day for you gentlemen because it's the final day of your season, and once you're done here, you got to get back over across to the Diamond, and you got a doubleheader scheduled against, I believe,
Huntington College.
Huntington College.
Right.
Well, almost at a different school, so I'm glad you corrected me. It's been a long season, but a quick season. Let's talk about it a little bit, because when you were able to visit last time with us, we were previewing the season, and you were getting ready to embark on a trip down to Florida to get things started. Let's take it almost from day one.
Well, Mike, we went down to Florida and didn't know what was going to happen. I told the girls, I said, this year we play about all Division I teams, and I said we're new on the block, but I said we're going to compete the best we can. Went down there, we competed quite well, but we only come out with 1 victory out of 9. But most of the games were very, very close. It's the first time we got outdoors. That was kind of a shocker. The first game, we were finally on the dirt, and we learned that some of the balls jump a little different ways than in the gym. But we competed quite well, and we beat University of Manhattan. The toughest team that we played down there was Colorado State. It's probably the 3 years that I've been coaching college softball is probably the toughest team that I've run into. They had great speed and quickness, and they had great power and great pitching, and they were just a great team. But you know, that opened our eyes, and we knew what to look forward to when we come home and compete against the Purdues and the Notre Dames and the Michigan States and the Valparaisos and the Detroit Mercies and so forth. And so we came back with our eyes open and ready to play. And we wound up beating Valparaiso. We wound up beating Detroit Mercy. We played Toledo, University of Toledo. Actually, we played them 4 times. Played them twice down there and twice at home here or up there at their place. And we were very competitive except 1 game. And again, I thought our young ladies really played well this year for the first time in Division I. And I'm not making excuses for them, and I don't like to lose, don't get me wrong. But I think with the young kids and the new recruits coming in, I think we're going to be very competitive in the next couple of years.
Well, let's digress for a moment if we can. Going back to the trip down south, we're a northern school, and it's been said for years, not just in softball and baseball, and I know in golf and perhaps tennis as well, southern schools seem to have an advantage because they can play outdoors year-round. Talk about the preparation. You're indoors when the snow's on the ground up here, anticipation and what's going to be like, and then the reality when you actually get down there. Obviously it's warmer temperatures, it's green grass and not white snow, but talk about how you and Dennis and Jennifer tried to prepare your team for the actual start of the season.
Well, when we get down there, we tell them, I said, you're going to get a little different bounces, and the weather's going to be warm. You're not used to that right now, and so I said we just got to work ourselves into to playing outdoors, and we got some practice time. We practiced ahead of time before we played some of the games, and so we found out the first game that we played, we were really apprehensive because of the fly balls, the outfield, which we haven't had a chance to get those or hit fly balls. We were, the routine plays made it short and second or so forth. It was, but they finally said, okay, Coach, we know what to do. We played this game before. And finally, after maybe 1 or 2 games, we were back with the the realization that we were outdoors. So,
Dennis, you handle the pitching staff. What were your preparations like, and what were you trying to get across to these gals that had to face live opposition?
Well, Mindy Pomeroy's a sophomore, and she got extensive experience last year, and more or less she just took what she learned last year and took it over this year, and she's done an extremely excellent job. Mindy Mason's kind of went through what Pomeroy went through last year with the learning curve. She started out pretty rough, and I'd say her last probably 5 or 6 games, she's right up there with Mindy Pomeroy right now. So we're really looking forward to both of them starting out on the same track next year, and with the addition of a new recruit coming in, we should be really, really blessed with a lot of good pitchers.
You mentioned the Florida trip, and you get the mothballs, get rid of the mothballs and so forth, and you get the experience, and like you say, and this is something I want to talk about maybe a little bit more in the next segment than this segment. A team is not as bad as its records may show, is not as good as its record may show, and if one looks at the record as we're taping this year, 7-27, and they may think, oh, we're a lousy team having a lousy year, but that's not necessarily the case. Let's talk about some. You mentioned playing some high-caliber opponents, some members of the Big Ten. As we briefly said before the start of taping this segment, last week you were in South Bend playing Notre Dame.
Right.
And I know they had just knocked off, I believe, a top 20 team before they took you on, and you had to lead on them for a while.
Number 4, Nebraska.
And yeah, Nebraska. But let's talk about some of the games this year. And though we may not have come out on top when the final out was made and the scoreboard, talk about some of the games and how close they were, and the experience that your guys learned.
Well, we played. Start out with we played down at Purdue in a tournament, and we played Oakland University, and they had an outstanding pitcher that we faced, and we only played him 1 game. We lost 2-0. So there's a ball game. We were struggling this year offensively again, and we just it was just maybe just we were just off a niche of here and there, and so finally it came through in the last, I would say, the last 2 weeks. You know, our girls finally started believing in themselves a little bit that they were good hitters. Our freshman girl, Angela Grabchek, come out of Florida with about a 450 batting average. She was on a tear down there. We started out with Toledo, a game with Toledo, and we had 2 on, and she hit a home run. We're up 3-0. Well, then we back through the field a little bit, as in horse racing, and we lose that ball game. But our younger kids, and we didn't have Crystal Fisher with us at that time. She was still recovering from her ACL injury, and so then when we got her back on track, our hitting kind of picked up a little bit. And Christina Funk's been hitting the ball well. The other day, Mindy Mason, she winds up with a home run, a triple, and a double. And Angela Grabchek hits a home run. Well, see, the bats are coming alive, and the season's about over. So we got to take that for the end of this year and take it to next fall and next spring, and hopefully we'll do that, and with some other great athletes coming in. But we had some great ball games. We go down to Notre Dame. I mean, we played Michigan State, for example. It was 2-0 ball game, one of the games, and it was a great ball game. So you know, when you play a Big Ten team like that, they go down the next or go down on Sunday. We play them on Saturday. They go down on Sunday. They beat IU 8-0, 11-2, or something like that. So you know, we're not that far off, but we're not winning ball games, and I don't like to lose. But we go to Notre Dame, and we don't know what to expect. I thought if we can come out of there with the skin still on our bodies and so forth, that you know, we'll feel okay. So and Dennis and I talked about it, and we said, well, we'll just do the best we can, and we're going to throw Mindy Pomeroy. We only played them 1 game. This is a game that she's always wanted to pitch in her lifetime. She never thought she'd ever pitch against Notre Dame. And when we got on the field, Mike, it was we lined up. They announced our team, and they announced their team, and it was like our team was here, and all of a sudden their team came out, and I swear the diamond slanted this way. I never seen such large girls, not heavy fat, and don't get me wrong, just great big athletes. And most of the girls from California and Arizona, a couple Indiana girls, but what a tremendous looking team. Now, if we looked at them and said, oh, let's get back in the bus and go home because of their size, would have been the wrong thing to do. We started out first inning and we jump on them 1-0. So we're up 1-0. We go through 4 innings and we're still ahead. And I think they kind of started scratching their head and they said, hey, this team's for real. We make an error. After 2 outs, a girl gets on. They get it, and the girl steals second. They get a hit and ties it up, 1-1 after 4. The 5th inning, we make another error after 2 outs, and the next girl gets up and hits a home run. So we're behind 3-1, and it happened the same thing, same scenario in the 6th inning. So we get beat 5-1. We don't like to lose, but we come out of there feeling that that we can do some things that we didn't think we could do. And we were pretty well pumped. We come back Friday then, and we didn't take it out on Indiana Tech, but we sure beat them up. I mean, we won 10-1 and 11-0. And those aren't really good ball games when you beat somebody that bad, because I always told the girls, I said, if you play 2-1 and 1-0 or 3-2 or something, those are great ball games. When you win by gobs of runs, it's not. Sometimes we're not learning a lot of things, but it's always nice to win. It's always nice to win.
Time for a break. We're discussing women's softball with head coach Keith Fisher and assistant coach Dennis Smith. And we'll continue our discussion of this season that's rapidly coming to a close and look ahead to next season as well. But that's when Mastodon Spotlight continues in just a moment.
They came from every corner of the country. From small towns and big cities. But they all shared one thing in common. They belonged to a family called Marines. A tough and determined few, dedicated to protecting everything we hold sacred. And still they come. Celebrate the 225-year history of those proud few who have earned the title Marine.
With over 30 years of dedication to his students, Professor of Geosciences Deepak Chowdhury recognizes the IPFW experience.
He doesn't spoon feed you all the information that you need. He mostly will give you all of the knowledge that you need in bits and pieces. And it's almost like a puzzle where he gives you all the pieces, and in the end you'll put it together and have the larger picture yourself. I really enjoy it. He's a great professor to work with and for.
IPFW is one of only 3 universities in the state to offer students hands-on experience with their own seismograph. This gives Dr. Chowdhury great pride, but it is the interaction with his students that has kept him teaching.
When the students understand the concept, what's happening, that glimmer of light in their eyes, that you cannot trade for any money. So that's the most important thing.
IPFW, the right school, right here, right now.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We're discussing women's softball with head coach Keith Fisher and his assistant Dennis Smith. And gentlemen, as we were just saying before the break, I never really liked the idea of looking at a team's record and seeing numbers, and when you have more losses than wins, and you always consider them a failure. And as you've just alluded, talking about the experience of playing Notre Dame last week, and perhaps in a way it was David and Goliath, but you're up, as you said, 1-0. 4 innings, and then they tie it in the 4th, and they get the break, and maybe that's the difference. What have you learned in 3 years of working with this team? When you took over, it was a straight Division II, and then last year was the first of the transition years where you started playing more Division I schools. This year, predominantly Division I schools, and I believe that'll be the way it is in the future. What's the well, maybe transgressions wasn't the right word. What's it been like, the progression from D2 to transition to D1, both from a player standpoint, a coaching standpoint, and the opposition standpoint?
Well, I think I think when we got to the D1 level, we start out, a lot of ball games will go through at least 4, maybe even 5 innings. It'd be a nothing ball game if both teams are pretty equal and pretty competitive with one another. And sometimes it comes down to that crucial error somebody makes, you know, that bobbled ball at short, or the bunt that gets down and is not fielded cleanly, or a bad throw. Sometimes it's all on breaks when things like that happen, and then those close games are 1-0 and 2-1. It's exciting for Coach Smith and I, you know, to be in a Division I program. We're excited. Anytime you can play Big Ten teams or Division I team anywhere in the country is a great thing for us, and I think it's a great thing for the university. We have, basically, we counted up 10 teams in the state of Indiana that are Division I, including us. And we've played 9 of the 10 teams. And matter of fact, I got a phone call 2 days ago from the University of Evansville, and that's the only team that we have not played. And she said, Coach, she says, you know, I'm excited to get you on my roster. And we actually played them in the fall, last fall, but as far as the regular season. And so they want to play us, they want to get us on the schedule, and this way we'll basically play every Division I team in the state of Indiana and then outside of Indiana. We got an invitation. We don't know whether we're going to go or not to New Mexico State. They invited us with a little help to come down and play in a tournament with them, and I don't know what kind of teams come out of there. I don't know whether some of the California teams or Arizona or whatever, but you know, we're getting some looks at, you know, and the Division I teams in the state of Indiana and coaches, you know, recognize that you know, we can play. We also beat Indiana State. I didn't mention that. They beat us 1 game 4-0, and we come back and beat them 7-1, and we put a little trick play on them in Valparaiso, and maybe I can tell you about that later on.
We definitely want to get into that. Before we look ahead to next year, and I don't know, I know in times past when we've talked, we don't like to omit anybody, but who's been the biggest surprise on a good note for you this year on this team?
Wow, the biggest surprise.
Sonia.
You know, our senior third baseman has really come to the point that, and she's really sad this is going to be her last game today, but she loves to play third base, and I'll tell you, Mike, it takes somebody with a lot of intestinal fortitude, and I guess you can get right down to it, say guts, to play third base when, especially, you play in close and you take those shots at you. And she's really turned in to be a tremendous third baseman. Her hitting skills were not very good up until this year, and they started getting better. And the last few games, she's just been on a tear also, and really been hitting the ball with confidence and playing quite well. So, you know, for a senior, I take my hat off to her. And we've got a lot of good freshmen, sophomore. All the kids are great kids, Mike, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. And they're a great team. That's the nice part about it.
Just for information, the she you're referring to is the senior? The name?
Sonia Atienzo. Yeah, third baseman.
Did we have her on like 2 years ago? I think we did.
I think we did, yeah.
Yeah, because the names that are always difficult for me to pronounce are
the
people you bring on
board.
Well,
it took me 3 years to pronounce her name, and sometimes I still mess up, but a great kid.
Briefly, let's talk about the game of softball itself. Women's softball, in a way, is totally different than men's baseball because, correct me if I'm wrong, the emphasis on women's softball is more on the fundamentals than it is on the men's baseball side because you're playing on a smaller field. The pitcher's mound is a lot closer to home plate than in baseball. Is it 46 feet?
43.
43 feet for softball,
right.
60 feet 6 inches for baseball.
Right.
But you have a situation where, for whatever reasons, there's not as much power, for the most part, in women's softball, so you rely on the little things. You mentioned the trick play, and we'll try to get to that in a moment. But the bunting, you get on base, you work the count. You try to get on base any way you can, and it seems like when we watch the NCAA tournament on ESPN, as we have the last couple of years, once a runner's on base, added pressure on the pitcher. The batter, it looks like, is going to try to do a sacrifice bunt most every time, or a slug bunt. The runner's going to try, if they can't advance on the bunt, they're going to try to steal. So there's added pressure on the pitcher, on the catcher, on the infield. And in essence, women's softball, you manufacture runs. In baseball, you may have the slugger with one swing of the bat can knock it 400 feet out of the park. So, talk about briefly the added pressure on women's softball as opposed to men's baseball.
Well, I'll say some things about basic, and then you can talk to Dennis about the pitching aspect, but it's a lot quicker game. You got 60-foot bases, 43 feet from the pitcher's mound to home plate, so it's not the big, long, sweeping swing that you can have in baseball. But there are some power hitters, don't get me wrong. There are some great power hitters in softball, great contact hitters, great line drive hitters. But it is a quick game. It's a slap. They do a lot of slap hitting, a lot of quickness. The girls that from the left side slap bunt or slap hit, and they're on the move, and you got to be right there and make that quick play. So from 60 feet, they're there, especially from the left side. So it's a quicker game, shorter fences in the outfield. But again, it's dominated. If you have a tremendous pitcher, there you go. It's a domination of tremendous pitching and then manufacturing runs. So, and Dennis can probably pick up on the pitching aspect, what it is as far as a pitcher.
Let's take it from there, Dennis.
If you get a dominating pitcher, whether we have one or the other team has one, you have to realize how to manufacture that one run. I mean, a lot of times in softball there are a lot of strikeouts. It's such a fast game. Short bases, everything's quick. That's why we have everybody hustle in and out, hustle out. It's quick, quick, quick. You don't want it a slow-paced game. You get that dominating pitcher out there, you have to manufacture that run. And a lot of girls always think like, oh, I'm striking out, but that's part of the game when it comes to softball. They're not used to it because they see weaker in high school and stuff like that, but that's part of the game. You have to learn how to deal with striking out, and don't worry about scoring 5, 6, 7 runs. Your main objective is to score 1 or 2. And if you play the other end of the defense really well, you're going to come out on top.
We don't have an awful lot of time left. I do want to briefly try to get into any signings you've got and perhaps some of the opponents next year, but let's get to the trick play. Let's get to the trick play and how you used it.
Mike,
one of them.
I've tried this, talked to the girls about it, and Coach Smith and Coach would kind of shake his head, go, oh, Coach, I got to do this.
Just go down the other end of the bench.
So, yeah, he'd say, hey, I don't even want to see this. So he was gone one day, and we were at practice, and I said, girls, we're going to learn to do this trick play correctly. And they go, oh, okay. So we pulled it on Valparaiso. We were up there. It was a close ball game. And you get a runner, the other team has a runner on second base. And, if you only have one out, there's a potential that run might score if on a hit or something. So what we do is we pitch out, the pitcher pitches out, and the catcher throws it very hard back to the pitcher. She gets it in her glove and holds it in there and clamps it over. She turns and wheels and throws to second base, but it's fake. Her arm fake. At that time, the shortstop dives on the ground towards the bag. The second baseman dives on the ground. Then we have our center fielder kind of slip, turn around, and run backwards, and we all holler, go get the ball, go get the ball. And the runner bid on it for Valpo and Indiana State, took off for third, and then we just throw the ball over to third and we tag him. And the coaches, first of all, the Valpo coach, he goes like this, and the Indiana coach knew it was coming. He was hollering, get back, get back. And after the game, he laughed and shook my hand. He said, I got another one for you, so he told me another play. And so, but anyways, it worked. It worked a couple times. You can't do it all the time, but
hopefully they try it today too.
The girls, after it worked, they were just all delighted and smiled. I think it gave us a little boost. We went on to win the ball games then. So,
in the brief time we have left, can you talk about any gals that you've been able to sign to a national letter of intent?
We have 3 young ladies coming in with a national letter of intent. One young lady from Adrian, Michigan, an outstanding athlete. Heather DeVore. I always say DeVoe, but it's DeVore. Heather DeVore, and she'll probably be a first baseman for us. Just a very, very good athlete. We have a girl from Castle High School in Evansville, a pitcher. She won the state, her team, and she won the state championship last year in 3A division. So we were very happy to sign her. We have a catcher coming from Woodland High School right here close to Fort Wayne, and another very, very good athlete and very good hitter. So they're all very good hitters, they're very good athletes. And then we have Maggie Bruning, who is already here at our university, which was a transfer. She won't be eligible until January, and actually to start on our team. So we're very happy to have her because she's also a tremendous athlete. So we have 4 girls to add to the young ladies we have. We're going to lose 3 seniors this year, and we're just happy to have those, and we're ready to pick it up again. We hate to have this ending now, but that's what happens.
Yeah. Well, that's the same goes for this segment. I enjoy the chat, and I appreciate both of you coming on, but unfortunately, John says we've got to take a break. But congratulations, this is year number 3 for both of you. And as I say, the wins and losses may not spell success, but if you get young women that are learning a collegiate program, they're studying their classwork in the classroom to get a degree to better themselves for life after college, we congratulate you on your efforts working with this team in more than one area. And we wish you well, and we're going to hold off on the new schedule until we start season number 4 in the fall of Mastodon Spotlight, and we'll bring you back then, and we'll talk about the fall schedule and the upcoming schedule for next year as well in the spring. But thanks a lot again for coming on this afternoon.
Thank you, Mike.
Keith Fisher, head softball coach, and his pitching coach Dennis Smith have been our guests. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk men's basketball with head men's basketball coach Doug Knoll. That's when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
When others can't understand you,
Excuse me, could you tell me where the Blackstone building is?
Ding-a-dong, hee-haw?
and you can't understand others,
Excuse me, could you tell me where the Blackstone building is?
then you have a clue what it's like to live with a communication disorder.
The Blackstone building.
For more on communication disorders and where to find help, call the American Speech Language Hearing Association.
You're looking at soldiers and their families. Citizen soldiers, members of the Army National Guard. They train part-time, building civilian experience, pursuing higher education. They serve our country and community in times of need. Join them. Call 1-800-GO-GUARD. Discover the part-time job with full-time pride.
In the Army National Guard, you can.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Time now for us to turn our attention away from the softball diamond, and we're going to move back indoors to the basketball court as we welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight the head men's basketball coach here at IPFW, Doug Knoll. Doug, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Mike. It's been a little while.
We bet, let's see, season ended the last week of February. We're on the 30th of April as we tape
Almost
this
2 months.
segment. What's going on in the last 2 months since the final horn blew?
Well, a lot, really. We gave them a short break, and then we were able to come back and start our workouts again. We're able to, by NCAA law, to work our kids out 2 hours a week, plus we're able to lift with them. And what we try to do in the spring is really dial it down a little bit to more individual skill work, and then do it with 1 or 2 guys at a time. We're able to go up to 4, but we'll do that in the fall. But in the spring, we really want to try to look at the year and try to really hit on some key areas that we need to work on with each guy. And so we'll go into like 2-man workouts. We'll even have as much as just 1 guy that we'll be working out for an hour at a time, and that really allows us some real pinpoint areas of work that these kids need, and that really helps us to focus all on that 1 or 2 of our players. So that's really good for us at this time of year.
Let's go back for a bit, and we talked many times during the course of the season. A most interesting year just completed because we really, truly stepped up and played the big boys. There's no doubt about it. It's, as we said back in January, at one time we had the 11th toughest schedule in the country, playing the likes of a Ball State, a Michigan State, a Michigan, an Oregon State, a San Diego State, and so forth. And if my memory is correct, the last time we were together, I believe either 6 or 7 of our opponents that we played went into postseason play, be it NCAA or NIT. Now that you've had a chance in some regards to look back and time has gone by a little bit since the season ended, what are your thoughts of the season just completed?
Well, I think we looked back at it for only a couple days and then took off for what we've got ahead of us. But in looking back right now, I would say that we were pleased in areas, parts of the season. We were disappointed in others. Part of our frustration in still other parts was the fact of our kids getting injured. I think only three of our kids played in every game, and that was difficult because we always had a mismatch or a disadvantage at certain key spots. We're playing Nick Wise at a power forward when he started out the season as the 2 guard, and those were disappointments. But in looking back, we really didn't know what to expect with having 2 big kids hurt the first week of the season and then trying to catch up the whole year. The first part of the season was very difficult, but that helped us for the second part of the season, which we really played well, still came up short quite a bit, but I think it was 10 games we lost by a total of, on the average of 2 possessions, and that's, in a 100-possession game of basketball, that's really close. And, we just look at it that we just didn't have a couple key kids in key spots. So, we had to be frustrated with that, but move on to the fact that we competed. And that's the one thing coaches really expressed to us a lot after games was that your kids really compete, and that's what we wanted to do. And as we look back at our second year of transition, Oakland University, who's in the Mid-Con, did the same thing we did, and in their second year transition played 4 Division I opponents. We played 24. And obviously we made some money for the athletic department, but I think also it really gave us an opportunity to see where we were at and how far we needed to go. And we're going to be fully funded this year, which has never happened at IPFW. And so we're anxious to look at next season and say that's almost like our first season, because I've never had a season where I've gone in and we've been on a level playing field. Now, from a recruiting standpoint and all that, a lot of these schools have more money. But again, I'm not complaining, because when you go from 4.5, 5 scholarships a year ago to 10 this past season to 13 next year, that's like Christmas every day. And we don't get every player that we go recruit, but at the same time, now we can offer, and now we have some tools to work with and can say this is a player that we really want to hone in on, and we can offer him a full ride. So, we've got 6 or 7 full ride offers out right now to juniors, even a couple to sophomores. And believe it or not, there's an 8th grader that we're looking at. And unfortunately, I thought, well, that's kind of bad to offer an 8th grader, and come to find out another school has already. And so he's going to be a pretty good one. But, what you got to do is just day at a time and set your goals and have good plans. And with all the changes right now that the NCAA has gone through, even in the last couple weeks, we're now able to go out and see juniors and have a contact with them at their school. Next, when they're seniors, we can go have a contact with them in their home. But for now, it's in the school, and that never happened before. So all of a sudden, we got 13 juniors in 2 weeks we got to go see. So we're all over the place. In fact, when I leave here, today's our last day, and we're going to go see one more workout this afternoon. Coach Andrews, Fred, was in Houston, Texas all weekend looking at kids, and so we're just trying to get better.
This past year, as we said earlier, the caliber of opponent, especially in the first half of the season, very high. A former national champion in Michigan State, powerhouses at some time or another, University of Michigan, Oregon State from the Pac-10, even though they finished in the lower tier of their league, still a very, very good basketball game. But I think of some of your coaching counterparts, and specifically I'm thinking of Tom Izzo at Michigan State, Tommy Amaker at Michigan, among others. What, after the game, obviously you had your post-game congratulatory handshake, and obviously there were a few thoughts exchanged. What's the biggest thoughts and biggest words of advice that some of your opponents' coaches gave you this year?
Well, I don't know that you can sit back and say we really talked a lot, because with coaches, I mean, everybody's got a lot to do even after the game for post-game prep and that type of thing. So really, never really sat down with any of the coaches. I see them more now on the road, and I think of all the coaches that have sat and talked with us, I think they all looked at it and thought, you know, number one, we were probably out of our mind to play a schedule like that, you know, with, 10 scholarships and just, still kind of not Division II, but not Division I, just kind of in that transition. But I think they also admired us for playing anybody, anytime, anywhere, and trying to, jump right into this at 100%. And that's really, as I told the guys at the beginning of the year, what we want to get out of this is obviously to get better, and you get better when you get stretched and you really have to compete for 40 minutes, because we found that out. I mean, we could play teams for 30, 35, but it's those, 8, 7, 5-minute stretches that, they would really take advantage of us because we were real thin at certain spots, especially the interior. Tom had, some great remarks for our program after the game, and thought, we'd be very competitive this year, and we were. But as I said, it just seemed like about every time that we would really get close to maybe doing something, then, we had an injury here or something happened there, and that was disappointing. I know the Montana State game was just kind of very typical. We're on the road out in Montana, and we lose by 4 to a team that just about made the big dance, but they did make the NIT. And we did it without Jeremy King and D'Angelo, 2 starters that both got hurt. Jeremy, the game before at Colorado State, and Dee during the game had 8 stitches in his head and came back, but that was like 3 minutes to go in the game. So there was like something all the time that really kind of pulled at us. But through the whole thing, probably the most, and I'm kind of dodging your question, but really I just, Tim Buckley from Ball State has, thought we really did a great job, and for just, our first year out there, and really it was, we consider next year our first year. But the one thing, Mike, that I guess I need to express to the viewers and to everybody is the fact that it was really ironic that our last game of the year against UMKC, when we were sitting in the locker room after the game, and we'd led at halftime, and we were up with like 8 minutes to go, and it was a close game the whole way. And towards the end of the game, what generally happens is if you're down, you try to shoot some threes to get back. That doesn't work. Then you foul. And we got beat by, 12 points, something like that. But it was close all the way. And we sat there with, I think, several thoughts going through our mind. One was we made it through the season. And the second thing was we felt fairly satisfied, although we felt like we could have done a little bit better. I think some of the kids felt like now they know, and now they know how to prepare, which they're doing right now. The other thing was nobody wanted it to end. And when that feeling comes that you don't want it to end, you leave on a good note, because we lose a couple key seniors. I think it shows too that if you don't know the struggle, you don't know the strength. And we struggled the whole year, there's no doubt about it, but we found an inner strength to do this and get this done, and it's going to be the same next year. I think our schedule's tougher next year, and I wish this guy would quit scheduling all these tough games, but
who is this guy?
When I find him, he's in trouble. So, but that's something that we're really proud of, is that we want to play these teams, and that could be my downfall. But when teams call, and the high majors call, we want a chance to compete against them, and they're beautiful arenas. It's the big time, and we want an opportunity to play them. And who knows? Maybe one time we'll upset somebody, and then the phone calls will stop.
And then everyone on ESPN and Fox Sports Net will see IPFW with the W on it.
Yeah.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the upcoming season, because the schedule is almost completed. We're going to talk about the new roster because there has been a lot of turnover due to graduation, recruiting, and other segments, or poor word. But we're going to talk recruiting, we're going to talk the roster, we're going to talk the upcoming schedule, and a little bit more when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
A Stargate. That's the door to other worlds that my character Tilk and the rest of my team use on Stargate SG-1. It's a door to exploration and exciting adventure. An education can provide you with a similar passageway to a world full of possibilities. So stay in school and graduate.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We're discussing men's basketball. Our guest is the head men's coach here at IPFW, Doug Knoll. And Doug, I want to take a step further to something you talked about earlier. The differences and now in coaching and playing and recruiting in Division I. And you mentioned a few moments ago about now there's a new wrinkle where you actually go out and you get to spend time with juniors. It's restricted because you go into their school and you're not able to go into their homes or visit with them and their families and what have you. What other changes in the recruiting structure have there been from the old days of both NAIA and Division II?
Well, there's a lot of changes, obviously. In the NAIA, we always used to say, we don't have any rules, but we don't have any money, so it really doesn't matter. And in Division II, you had a little more rules, but we still didn't have a lot of money. And to give you an idea, my recruiting budget alone is close to my total operating budget when I came here 3 years ago. So it's just completely different, and everything is, you can't even look back and say, well, this is how we did it, because it's not even, you can't even compare, because it's apples to watermelon. I mean, it's not even oranges. It's way completely on the opposite end. But we're really enjoying it. I mean, I always thought Division I was something that was great, but I didn't. It was never something that I had a huge passion for, because I really enjoyed coaching, no matter what level it was. But as we get up through there in the first year, I mean, it's pretty exciting. And to play some of these teams has been great. We've even seen, just since the Final Four at the beginning of April, which is a month, some of the major changes. And it's almost like a couple years ago, they tried to take a little bit of AAU out of the mix and put it back more on the high school teams. And that was good. Everybody liked that, because AAU was kind of getting out of control, and some of these coaches in AAU were doing some things that just were not up to snuff. And usually, and that's not to say everybody, because there's some really good AAU coaches out there that have the kids' best interests in mind. Some of them, though, had their best interests in mind, trying to get close to all the big-time coaches and that type of thing. But for instance, what they've done just in the last month is they allowed us to go out and contact juniors, which we just talked about. The other thing is they cut our recruiting days on the road next year during the high school season from 70 evaluation days to 40. Wow. And that's going to take a chunk out. The other thing is they added 6 days on the recruiting trail in July, which gives us 20 days. We're on the road 10, we're off 4, and we're on 10. And last year it was 7 on, 10 off, 7 on. Now, if you add that by 6, that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you'd have 3 assistants out there during those times, that's like 18 more days. That's good, because we can see a lot more kids, and we have to hone in. The other thing is we really have to make those 40 days count next winter when we're out. We just can't go see a kid. I really like to go around and watch most of the high schools in Fort Wayne. Well, that's kind of, I'm not going to be able to do that because every time now, we may not have a kid we're recruiting from one of the high schools, but I'd like to get out and just see the coach, say hi, watch a game, see some young talent. We can't do that now. So there's just been all kinds of rules from, and changes made from the Final Four, but those are some of the things that you live with, completely different than NAI rules and Division II rules, and you almost have to have an interpreter with you 24/7 just to keep up with it, because it does get pretty complicated. But if when in doubt, don't do it, and that's been our motto, because we're such a new Division I that we don't want to take any chances of breaking a rule, and so we'll ask, and then we'll ask again, and probably ask one more time to Moses, our compliance officer, and then if we just still feel there's a gray area, we just won't do it. So.
Well, let's look ahead, because you do have to recruit, because you do lose players, and this coming year you're going to lose two good ones. Nick Wise, one of the all-time leading scorers at the university, 18 points a game, and a tremendous leader on the court, not so much by his voice but by his actions. And Matt Shepard, the graduating senior from Newaygo, who improved, and as you said earlier, a rarity of sorts, getting a chance to play JUCO, Division I, Division II, Division III in his career. But you're bringing in a number of new faces and new players, and let's talk about the upcoming roster, if you'd be so kind.
Sure. That's pretty exciting for us. We lose two seniors, and that happens every year because, kids just run out of eligibility. And then we've got a couple kids not coming back. We helped a few kids try to get to a different level that may feel like, they just can't maybe compete at this level, or they want to play more. And so really we have 4 kids from our 13-man roster that won't be back. Obviously Nick is a key that we're going to miss, and Matt really gave us some good things. But through that whole thing you always get new players, and actually we've got about 7 of them. And the reason we have so many is 2 of them were already in our program, and that was Dave Simon, a 6'9" kid out of Vernon Hills, Illinois, and Rick Wyan, who unfortunately didn't make it academically in the second semester last year. It's great to say, though, that Rick's doing fantastic right now. He's around a 3.0, and I think this is a great learning experience for Rick. It really killed us last year, but he dropped 28 on Ball State, had 6 threes. Was leading us in rebounding at the time, and we really could have played him probably 5 more games, but I just really felt like, if the other kids are going to get things done and, he didn't, then, we just need to concentrate on those kids who are going to help us throughout the entire year. So, but Rick's doing well. Dave, unfortunately, blew out his knee about a week after the season. He's in rehab, had an ACL and a meniscus tear, and they've got those fixed, and so he's through rehab. But the unfortunate thing with Dave is, he's not played any college basketball. He played volleyball at Loyola Chicago, and he's 6'9", 250, and he's going to really shore up our inside game. But we're missing this whole time in the spring and summer with him to get him prepared, and we probably won't get him back until school starts. So he's going to be behind a little bit, but we still got 3 years with him, and he's doing good. So those are 2 keys that we've had in our program. And then we have we signed 5 freshmen who I'm really thrilled with. 3 of them are first-team All-State, 2 out of Ohio, 1 out of Indiana, and then we got a couple other kids that one's a second-team All-State, another's a top 40 player in Indiana. So we've got some quality kids. 4 of them are National Honor students, which is really good. And so I'm real thrilled with that. Freshmen are freshmen, so that's going to be a little bit of a struggle, but I would look that a couple of them will maybe rise to the top a little quicker, and then we're probably going to redshirt 2 of them and keep them back to have 50-year seniors down the road. So.
And you've still got some other kids coming back, and I think of a couple of people like Jim Kesnick at 6'10", Pewaukee native. Terry Collins, who made great strides once he was eligible from Snyder High School. Those 2 come to mind in a hurry, and I know there's others. Brad's coming back for his senior year.
Right. Jeremy King, who really was second in scoring and first in rebounding, will give us another really good athlete on the wing. The ironic thing is we got 4 starters back, and that's pretty good. You know, and I don't know if any of the new kids are going to move people out, because definitely Rick's going to challenge, and probably Dave for a starting spot. But that's really going to be good when we've got depth to bring off people. You know, we've got D'Angelo Woodall back as a senior, and he's done just a great job. Was voted our most improved, and really did well from that standpoint, Mike. And then, as you said, we've got Brad. Keon Henderson had knee surgery, but he's coming back really strong. Terry, what a great first, second half of a year. He set out a year and a half, and then came back, right before Christmas, or right after Christmas, actually, and was our second leading scorer by average. Obviously not points, because he played in 18 games, but he had 25 against Oakland, and was one of the sole reasons we won that game. Knocked a great shot down with about 1:47 a three to put us up 3. Had 24 other times against some good teams, and so we're really excited to have him back. And of course, as you mentioned, Kess and Zach Gruder, who broke his foot, first day of practice and kind of struggled, is coming back too. So we're really looking forward to that group. We're able to get our freshman, Tyler Clevenger's first team All-State, and then we've got Kyle Thrasher from Floyd Central, 6'8". We've got another kid who's really kind of, we're pretty excited about, Brandon Jennings from around the Columbus, Ohio area, 28 points, 14 rebounds a game, at 6'6", about 235. So we've got some good, and then from Van Wert, we got Corey Sinning, who's a first team All-State, scored almost 1,900 points, 26 points a game, 90% from the line, and he's a 3.8 GPA, and had not been for the coaching change at Army, he may have ended up there, but we worked him hard, and so you know what kind of a quality young man he is if it's between us and Army, and but we're real excited for that. Our freshmen are coming in at the beginning of July, take a class, going to be able to do some workouts with our guys, and so I think that's going to be a big edge to what we can do now as well. So we're looking forward to it.
And October 15th is not that far off.
Yeah, actually it's the 12th.
12th this year.
But
hope I'm in better shape this year for Midnight Madness.
it's the first Saturday closest to the 15th. So actually the 11th of October is that Friday, which Friday night we'll have Midnight Madness, and then we'll get going, and that's going to be here before we know it. I mean, I'm still trying to just get to the summer, but.
In our final moments, we can't go through it in much detail because John says we're almost out of time, but the upcoming schedule.
He always runs our party, doesn't he?
I know it. What the heck? Some of the opponents this coming year. Ball State, season opener, November 22nd at the Coliseum. It's a Friday night. Oakland University, they're going to be thinking payback after what we did to them here. Eastern Kentucky comes here. Lipscomb out of Nashville. Aquinas College, back to your old stomping grounds, University of Wyoming, and stop over to play Nebraska on the way back.
Easy road
Barry
trip there.
Collier. Yeah. Oregon State comes this way, plays at the Coliseum on December 20th. Tri-State, you go out west again between Christmas and New Year's. Cal State Irvine, San Diego State with Steve Fisher and was it Randy Livingston? I'm trying to. They're a real good player. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Well, they had about 5 of them.
But the one who
really,
probably should go in the NBA,
really
but he's
pretty
not.
good.
But San Diego State, UNLV, January 2nd at the Thomas and Mack Center. January 10th.
I don't mean to interrupt you, Mike, but I think they're planning, our marketing director is planning a booster trip to go to Vegas. And for what I've heard, it's 3 nights, round-trip airfare, a ticket, and it's $500 and some, I think. And they're gonna have that out pretty soon, and that's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
So
stay tuned. More news to follow on that.
That's right.
But you've got UNLV. You've got Utah. Rick Majerus. You're going to take on Rick Majerus in January. And then you come back relatively close to home, and I know we're out of time, John. Morehead State, Chicago State, Loyola Chicago, Middle Tennessee State. You go down to Texas for a weekend in February, play Pan American, Texas Corpus Christi, or A&M Corpus Christi. Youngstown State, Centenary College, Illinois Chicago, Wright State on February 22nd, and tentatively as we speak, finish it off at Maine. An interesting schedule.
Yeah, in some ways, Mike, I think it may be a little tougher. We've got one more game to get, And it's kind of ironic. Stanford called us. We've talked to a lot of people, even another Mountain West team, which would give us 5. We might as well join that league. I mean, 5 Mountain West teams. But, you know, we're trying to just pinpoint one more game. And when I look at that, I see another tough road. But, again, I just feel like, you know, it helps recruiting. It's something that I think gives us a challenge. And at this point in time, we look at it as a 4 or 5 year plan. We want to get in the league. We want to solidify ourselves in a league. And if we can play these teams and, you know, come out, you know, we're not always going to win some of those games. And nobody likes to lose. But I tell you what, if you ask any of our players, you know, I said we could play a home game against a non-D1, you know, to fill in the gap, or we can go out to Stanford or somewhere like that and play. Where do you want to go? And they don't even think. I mean, it's just Stanford, you know, or, you know, somewhere where there's a team like that. And that's what it's about. It's about competing. And I think the wins will come. It's just, you know, when we're playing a schedule like that, it's going to be tough. But hey, we're in it for the long haul. So, you know, let's just you know, really, you know, make it tough. But let's be better when we're all done.
We are definitely out of time. But thank you, as always, for coming in. Always enjoy it. Have yourself a good summer.
You too.
And anxious to get started in October.
I can start playing golf now a little bit more.
Thanks again.
You bet.
Doug Knoll has been our guest, head men's basketball coach here at IPFW. We thank Doug. We thank Keith Fisher, Dennis Smith for appearing earlier from the softball program. And as always, we thank you, the viewer, for tuning in to see what's going on with IPFW athletics. One more show before we take a break over the summer. That's next week. Tentatively, we scheduled to have Kelly Hartley, women's volleyball coach, and Bruce Patterson, women's basketball coach, on. And we invite you to come back for that one as well. But until then, this is Mike Moss saying have a great week and go Dons.